So the first property is 85 Kingsway. If you'd like to come forward.
Please state your full name.
Dachan Ramsawa.
And you affirm the evidence you're about to present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Hello. You have the option to swear in on the Bible or to affirm without it. Okay, please state your full name.
Mark Doucette?
And you affirm the evidence you're about to present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Please state your full name.
Jody Robin Doucette.
And you affirm the evidence you're about to present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. I can put your evidence now.
Okay.
5 copies, please.
Thank you. Mr. Ramsell, you ready?
Just about, Madam Chair, be with me, please. Thank you.
Okay, just wait. Good morning. Have you been to one of these hearings before?
No,
Okay.
understand.
No worries, it's easy.
Okay.
Whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Now, in respect to the subject property, which is on 85 Kingsway, I urge you to follow it as we go on. You may have your own copy here. Okay. All right. First of all, what I'm going to be describing here is the subject property, a little bit that is, and then I have 4 comparables to more or less determine the value of this property. Now, what is important here is that we recognize the fact that this property was in fact sold in 2019 through multiple listings. We do recognize also that it's a post-reference sale, so as a result, not something that we could place any emphasis on. We tried to determine the value on April 1st, 2018, not on the date that the property was sold, not on today's value, but on April 1st, 2018, and not on 2020 either. Although this can be used, the sale may be used for the next reassessment, certainly something we're not going to place any emphasis on. So, what we do happen to have here for the assessment is for 2020, $633,000, and I did have a conversation with the appellant, that Mr. Douchet, is that how you pronounce your name, sir?
Doucette. Doucette.
Duquette.
Doucette.
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 Thank you. Okay, I did mention to him that I'm recommending an assessment of $533,000 instead of what you see there. So just for the panel and for yourself, you know that that's basically what we're trying now to determine or establish.
I'm sorry, 533?
$533,000.
Thank you.
You
And
don't-
this recommendation is not accepted?
Well, I didn't ask whether or not it was going to be accepted by him. I just told him that this is what it is, and when he comes here and makes his presentation, the panel will determine that. So, no, it wasn't, to my understanding, there was no yes or no about
Okay.
the recommendation.
Mr. and Mrs. Doucette?
Yes.
When did
So-
you receive the phone call?
So the assessor is giving you a recommendation of 533, and I just want to know yes or no, do you accept that?
No, we do not.
You do not? Okay, thank you. So we're going to proceed.
Okay.
Carry on.
All right, thank you. Okay, now what we have here is a two-story home, single family, built in 1985, 820 square feet, with a full basement and some development in the basement, multiple bathroom. Lot size is 6 to 100 square feet and a little bit more. What I ask you to look at is that I'm not going to talk a great deal about the other characteristics of the property, from the basement going down to the in-ground pool, which you have there. And just for the audience here as well, I'm not going to be discussing this, certainly not in detail. I only do it when I have to. So you have it there. So what I'm going to be talking about a great deal is some of the characteristics that are more important, and the ones that actually drive the value even more. And that is the location, the type of property, is in this case is a two-story home. A single family is in this case, all of the comparables are the same. I'm also going to be maybe talking a little bit about the age of these homes and the effective age, which is a bit different. I also talk a little bit about the square footage of each of these properties and how it can make a difference in value. And then of course I'll be looking at what the other properties are selling for. And at some point in time, we try to determine that. I'm going to be looking then at what properties are more highly similar to yours. So that's what I'm going to do. Now, there are 4 comparables that we have here. To try now to at least support the $533,000 what I was recommending. First of all, comparable number 1 excuse me, is in the same neighborhood characteristic area as determined by the neighborhood area called Crescent Wood. It's a 2-story home which is similar to that of the subject property. It's also a single family home which is also used for the same purpose as a single family dwelling. This property was built in 1924, and what you see here as effective age is that there is some renovation that is done to this property. There's actually it actually makes the property a little bit not really on the same age, but extend the life of it, and that's why it is at 1954 as determined by evidence from what renovation is done into the property. If it was to remain at the 1924 year, then it would be more than likely an older property and having a less value because it was not renovated. So in each case, when you see the effective age of the comparables that are different, you know there have been some renovation to try now to get the property to be more or less closer to the condition of yours. It's also possible that when I look at this here, I'm seeing here a property built in that have effective age of 1954, more than likely is not going to be in the same condition as one that is in 1985, so take that into consideration as well. 11,390 square feet is the size of the lot, which is a whole lot larger than that of the subject property. And at $680,000 is a time adjusted sale price, and I hope that you're seeing that time adjusted sale price to you.
I do.
At the bottom. On the sales information, if you look right across, those are the figures that I'll be looking at more closely and trying now to compare yours. Now, because I'm recommending the $533,000, I'm telling the panel here as well as yourself that this property at 60 Harvard is superior to yours. So we're trying to determine which properties are superior, which properties may be inferior, and therefore which properties are closer to that which I think your property is worth. So it is in fact superior.
Excuse me, Mr. Ramswack.
Hmm?
I would just like you to read the comparisons, please.
I beg your pardon?
Just read out the comparisons. Just read out the information, please.
All the information.
Thank you. Just read it out,
Mm-hmm.
and please leave out all the explanation, because we're going to be asking questions.
Okay.
And we're not instructing here. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Fair enough. All right, comparable number 2 then, number 72 Cordova. It is in a slightly different neighborhood, but certainly closer. It's a 1.5-story home which is going to have the main floor and the second floor, of course. It is 2,133 square feet and have an effective age of 1975. Also has a rec room and a similar a lot size that is comparable to that of the subject, and the $681,000, which would suggest again a property that is somewhat superior to yours. Comparable number 3, 124 Campbell Street, in the same neighborhood area as that of comparable number 2. It's a 2-story home, an effective age of 1955, and a size of 1,791 square feet, which is close to that of yours, of the subject. The lot size is highly similar, virtually the same as 5,989 square feet. It's 497 square feet. On that basis, when we're considering a value from the assessment department at 533, we like to think then that this is somewhat a property that is more or less closer to that of yours. And then comparable number 4, in the same neighborhood characteristic area as yours, in Crescentwood, we have an effective age at 1975, which is closer to that of yours. We have a size of the home at 2,900 square feet, which is about 800 or 700 square feet. Actually, it's more than 1,000 square feet larger than yours, and it's 797 square feet. So there are some superiority in this house as well, at 797 square feet. So what I see here is the one that is actually closer to yours is comparable number 3, which is what I'm putting my weight on, and therefore again we suggest that the department is recommending the $533,000 as what we consider to be a fair value, because we cannot use your sale being a post-reference sale in 2019. And that's my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any questions of the assessor on the information he's
I
provided?
do. What is a time-adjusted sale price? What is that? Time-adjusted.
I'm sorry, I don't know.
What is the time-adjusted sale price?
What is the time-adjusted sale price? The time-adjusted sale price is based on market evidence and market condition. Market condition, which means that if based on the market condition and how properties are going up, albeit marginally now as opposed to 10 years ago, is that if we find that a property has been sold or similar property sold for X numbers of dollars, and one that is highly similar, or the same property has been resold for even 1 or 2% higher, and that's how we capture the values as an increase for the time adjustment. And so now you would also see that some properties were sold as in comparable number 1, January 2016, and comparable number 4, the last one you see, September 2017. You'll notice then that you'll have a smaller increase in the one that was sold more recently than the one that was sold later. It's not a direct dollar value for each property, they vary.
It's more to do with the effective age as opposed to, it's more to do with the effective age as opposed to a time, a specific date?
And the effective age is different. The effective age is based on the, and we determine that the property life has been extended by renovation or upkeep and regular maintenance and that kind of thing. Naturally, a property that was built, as in this case, take the last one for example, 1915, if nothing was ever done to this property or any property around that time frame, they will all be demolished. And so in order to upkeep the property, maintain the property, the renovations is being done, and so therefore the effective age changes accordingly.
I have 2 questions if I could.
Sure, go ahead.
Jump in. The comparables list does not include number of bedrooms. I feel number of bedrooms is important for valuing a home. I'm wondering why that is not listed.
I'm sorry,
The number of bedrooms is not listed for the comparables as one of the criteria to value the home. I'm wondering why that's not listed.
What's the question?
why you don't have the number of bedrooms listed?
Okay, thank you. The number of bedrooms doesn't drive values, it's not, we never do that. A property that has a 3-bedroom or 4-bedroom can have the same value. The number of bedrooms does not determine the value of a property.
I just want to point out, it's not really a question, but I feel it's an error. On the subject property, it states 3 full baths plus 1 half bath. In actuality, 85 Kingsway has 2 full baths and 1 half bath. That may affect the property value.
Okay, now, I think maybe a question was, why does one property have more baths than the other one, and how do you
No,
determine the
he's-
value?
Well, there's
No.
an error in the spreadsheet.
He's saying there's an error on your sheet.
Oh,
He
okay.
said there's only 2 full baths at their house. So if you
Okay,
wanna,
all right. There's only 2 full baths. Can you describe the bathrooms in your home for me, please?
So on the second floor,
Uh-huh.
it is a bathroom with vanity and bathtub with a shower head. On the main floor, bathroom, vanity, full walk-in shower.
Uh-huh.
On the basement floor is a bathroom with a small man shower.
Okay, so you don't have a tub in the 3rd floor? Okay.
That's correct.
I'll take a note of that, and I'll check with the listing as well, because the property has been sold, and it will show us that as well. So I'll take a note of that and make that necessary correction, if necessary. And we can keep in touch, and I'll make that adjustment.
That's all I have.
okay. Mr. Mayor, did you have any questions of the
Yes,
assessor?
normally, post-reference material is not allowed in here, and so my question is, why would you report the sale if, in 2019, when we go up to a V-Day of April the 1st, 2018, so why was the, sale put in there if it was post-reference?
Well, actually, I'm not sure where. I have to say this, I wasn't really expecting that question, because of all the years that I've been here, every time we have it, that has always shown up.
Well, I ask a lot of questions that are probably relevant, so that's why I asked the
I can
question.
appreciate that, In a sense, I'm glad it's there, so that at
Okay.
least it is pointed
So-
out. But for all the years, it's always been there.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay. So the city came in here and you have a assessed value of $633,000, and you came in here to defend that position, and suddenly, I'm not sure when you made the recommendation, whether it was here or whether it was given to the appellants prior to. So maybe you could answer that question.
Of course. When this was generated and sent to the office here a couple of days ago, that was already prepared then. And when I looked this over and over again, I thought that there was something that I can do about this, and I checked it, and I decided, well, it has to be lower, and this was the determination we've made to 533, and therefore I have it here after the fact, after it was sent into your office. So this was done recently, and Mr. Duquette, I beg your pardon. You would recall, I spoke with you
On Monday. Monday of this week.
at some point, yeah, and this was sent in, I think, on Monday afternoon, or was it? Yeah, I thought,
So-
yeah, this was already there, yeah.
So the recommendation is not acceptable to the client, and I noticed that it's, over $100,000 less, okay? I'm looking at your comparable sales, and comparable sale number 4 is completely irrelevant because it's so high and it has no bearing in regards to the assessed value. So your recommendation is based at 533. How is that concluded? Why did you come down so much? Whereas I look at the comparables, the only comparable that is probably similar to the subject property is number 3.
Okay.
So is that how you based your recommendation?
Well, after looking at this property, I determined that this property was what we consider an outlier when it was done on the master appraisal. And so this property had this a certain value even prior to the sale. And after the sale, when it was checked out a little bit more closely, we determined that since it was an outlier, we wanted to do something about it, and the $533,000 is the best estimate that I can come up with at that point in time.
So you had mentioned also about probably the next year when the assessment comes up, it would be more or less in line with the sale price, correct?
And that is the intention, yes.
You had also talked about, did I hear you mention about an in-ground pool?
No, I didn't.
Okay, that's fine.
What I mentioned, I said that for the purpose of timing and the characteristics of these properties from the basement finish up to the in-ground pool, I'm not going to be talking much about those.
All right, I thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All my questions have been answered. Mr. Ramswack, did you have an inspection of this property?
No, Madam
No.
Chair.
Do you know the
I
last?
only looked at the multiple listing.
Okay, so you didn't drive by?
No.
Okay. Do you know the last time this property was inspected?
I don't have any idea, Madam Chair, but if I take a look at any notes that you may have, and this is for my purpose here, or thing, I don't have that either.
Okay.
So I don't know.
Okay. So out of your 4 comparables, was it Campbell Street you said had the most weight? Campbell Street.
Yeah, well, what it mentioned about Campbell is that this one is.
No, but is that the one that you're putting all your weight on as the best comparable?
Well, it's the one that is closer to that of the subject property, Madam Chair, because the other properties are deemed superior to this subject.
Okay. So Kingsway, this property is located in Crescentwood, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And 124 Campbell is located in River Heights.
124 Campbell.
Comparable number 3.
Correct.
Right. So those are 2 different neighborhoods.
Okay, the reality, Madam Chair, is that when we try to get the properties that are highly similar, sometimes we don't always get it in the same neighborhood. And if you want to bear with me, I'll just have a quick look at where this is 631 here for the neighborhood characteristic area, and 601 would be very close by. I have a map here that shows that there's only one.
You've included a map.
Oh,
It's on the back of your brief.
mhm.
Okay, and so you're using Campbell as your most comparative property, although it's built in 1925 and has an effective age of 1955, and the subject property was built in 1985.
Okay.
So that's 30-year difference.
Well, exactly. I'm glad you pointed that out, Madam Chair. This is what I'm looking at. I'm also looking at, based on this, when I'm doing the reconciliation, I see a property on 1 Campbell supposedly should be inferior to that of the subject property when you look at, in particular, when you look at the effective age of the property as opposed to the 1985. We look at the Campbell property that is, I think, virtually the same size. I would not consider 20-something, 24 square feet, 23 square feet as having any adjustment on that. I see the lot size is about the same. I see a $497,000, and I also know that when I'm looking at a 1955 property as opposed to a 1985 property, I would like to think that 85 Kingsway is superior based on the evidence here and based on the way I'm analyzing it.
Okay? Thank you. That's
Thank
all
you,
my
Madam Chair.
questions. If you'd like to proceed with the presentation, thank you.
guess we've provided a package with 4 exhibits that we'd like to present to the board. Firstly, Exhibit A, we've provided 9 comparables. They are in River Heights. We felt that Crescentwood is an older community. 85 Kingsway was an infill property on a lot that was subdivided in 1985. It's a 40-foot lot, very small property. So we had done comparables for 2-story homes, comparable bedrooms, comparable bathrooms, comparable footprint, living area, and all sold between 2018 and 2019. So we felt that these were very relevant comparables. The sale prices range between $480,000 and $340,000. So we feel 85 Kingsway falls within this range, and these are more representative comparables. At the bottom of the front page of Exhibit A, we've handwritten in the 85 Kingsway items, the bedrooms, so it's for easy reference. It's a unique home. It built in 85, an infill, and it's hard to compare the years, but as far as the square footage and the number of bedrooms and number of bathrooms, we feel that these are appropriate. Exhibit B, we'd like to discuss the granular back lane we feel devalues the property, and we've explored having this upgraded with our neighbors and with the city of Winnipeg, and it'd be extremely difficult, if not impossible, to upgrade it to a paved back lane. The city of Winnipeg improvement program states that in order to improve back lane, the property owners must prepare a petition and receive 60% of the frontage property owners to buy in. This property backs onto St. Mary's Academy High School, which has 53% of that vote, essentially. We've approached the academy and they do not have direct access to the back lane. They have no interest in participating in the petition. So my understanding, speaking with our neighbors, this has been attempted year after year, and it's always come up with poor results. So we feel that the gravel back lane values the property. Exhibit C is the sale price that was registered, and Exhibit D are photos of the condition of the home. This 85 Kingsway was built as a 2-bedroom home. We have submitted a permit and been approved a permit to add a closet to make it a 3-bedroom home, as we have 2 daughters that require their own rooms. And we feel that if 2018 value of the property is being assessed, then the 2-bedroom home, I think, is a large factor in that assessment. Is there anything you want to add?
No? Okay. Thank you.
Do you have questions, Mr. Ramsell?
No, okay.
Thank you. Mr. Merritt?
Yes, Madam Chairman. Mr. Doucette, I never got the range that you spoke about.
The range of
The range?
property values?
Yeah.
Sure. So the front page of Exhibit A,
Okay.
on the far right.
Just tell me what the range is.
Sure. The low end is 340,000.
Okay,
The high end, 480,000.
480, okay. I noticed that some of your sales are post-reference. Okay. Did you buy this house February the 11th in 2019?
Yes, we
Is
did.
that what it was? So that was in the winter?
Yes,
And it was listed at $475.
correct.
Any subject twos when you bought the house, like an engineer's report or anything like that, or, financing?
Subject to
Subject
financing.
Yes.
Okay. So, what value are you seeking for the subject property for the VD?
Our understanding that the sale price is appropriate value,
So the 460?
yes.
I have no further questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very much.
Did you purchase the house February 2019 or April?
We got possession on April 5th.
Okay.
We purchased it in February.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
You mentioned the size of your lot, it's 40 feet,
Yes.
and the depth, do you know the depth?
I don't have offhand 100 and, or say 140, but unfortunately I don't have, I can do the math here.
That's okay.
600,
I'm
600.
assuming it'd be 140, 150.
Yeah,
And that was a split.
yes, it was subdivided over, what, 1980. I guess I do have one other item to add. The
Go
previous owner was the original owner, so I don't know that it was ever put on the market before or assessed. I mean,
From 1985?
from 1985, yes.
Oh, it would have been assessed.
Okay.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
it's when it was built, for sure. It's
I
somebody-
see.
Yeah, somebody from the city was there. And sorry, what is the number you're looking for, the sale price you purchased it at
460.
in 2019, which you understand is post-reference? And have you made any improvements to the home since you moved in?
We've added a closet. We submitted a permit for adding a bedroom, so we had to build a closet for an extra bedroom.
It was what they considered a sunroom.
Oh, and so you've turned the
We've
sunroom
turned it
into a
into
bedroom?
a
Right.
So you haven't added additional
No,
furniture
no,
onto the house or
structural.
anything? Okay.
No structural.
And I think the pictures you've provided, your kitchen as is,
That's right.
That's right.
I'm assuming original, 1985,
Yes.
and your bathroom
Yeah,
Also
they're all
original.
carpeting, and the last page, are these pictures of your basement?
So the
Is that telepost?
The one with the closet, that's what we just built. The
Okay.
closet, and
Right.
we've improved the flooring. And then on the right is the basement.
That is the basement.
Yeah.
And have you made any improvements in the basement? or
None in the basement.
that's- Okay. So if that's all questions, thank you very much for coming this morning. Leave it with us, and
Okay.
you'll get a decision in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Thank you
Thank you for your
very
time.
much. We're just going to take a 5-minute recess. Thank you.
I plug it for, I think I've done it before.
So just
Whatever.
stop me.
I can always plug it again.
Okay, and I'd like to call this hearing back to order. And our next property is 401 Kelvin Boulevard.
Oliver. Timberwadi.
And you have firm the evidence if I present the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Okay.
It's fine there. Reading the six.
Fine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Ramsrock, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If you want to give me a moment just to scan through these, please. Okay, Madam Chair, I guess in the interest of timing, I guess we can proceed.
Yes.
All right. What we have here, 401 Kelvin Boulevard in Tuxedo. It's a two-story single-family home, and I would emphasize that the property was built in 2016. It's 2,876 square feet with a full basement, and it's also developed 10,000 square feet about. Is the size of the lot. We have it assessed at $1,183,000, that is $1,183,000 for 2020, which we are defending and which we feel is fair. 4 properties have been selected to defend the assessment of this property. Each of these properties are in Tuxedo. Apartment number 1, number 14 Borkenhead Avenue, is a 2-story single-family home. It was built in 1966. Apparently there has been some renovation done to the property that extended the life of the property and now has an effective age of 2016. And a property that is about 3,000 square feet, or about probably less than 200 square feet larger than that of the, rather 200 square feet almost larger than that of the subject property. It also has a finished basement. The lot size is virtually the same, and this property is at $1,300,000 or $1,300,000. That was actually sold for. That would be the unadjusted sale price. The adjusted sale price, on the other hand, is $1,327,000. Apartment number 2 on Park Boulevard North, a 2-story home with an effective age of 2007. Much smaller, it's 2,295 square feet. And the lot size is virtually the same. $1,100,000 is the unadjusted sale price. That's what it was sold for. And the adjusted sale price, $1,117,000, which is sort of almost the same on that of the subject. comparable number 3 on Chatway. And this comparable is actually built in 2015. In terms of age, is definitely the one that is closer to that of the subject property. In terms of size, it is 300 square feet more than that of the subject. So it's superior in that regard, that it's 300 square feet larger. 187 square feet is a lot size. I would not make any adjustment for that. I would think that that's the value on the lot size for 100 square feet, and that of 10,000 square feet would be about the same. However, this property is unadjusted sale price, that's the $1,450,000 or $1,450,000 is what was sold for. The adjusted sale price, that's the time adjusted sale price, $1.5 million. Comparable number 4, 443 Park Boulevard East. It's a 2-story home, 1973. Apparently we don't have any information about the effective age change, therefore we don't have any information about whether this property is renovated or not. It's for 229 square feet, about 300 and some square feet larger than that of the subject property. It's backing onto a park, or certainly has a park influence. Lot size that is, I would say, considerably larger, 14,000 square feet, almost 15,000 square feet. 15,000 square feet is about a third of an acre, and this one here is $1 million. It was sold for $1,051,000. Looking at all these comparables here, I think that many of them are sort of highly similar to that of the subject property. Certainly, we look at the location, we look at the type of property, single-family home. The size of the home, they're close. Some of them are larger. One of them in particular is much smaller. However, the values of this property, they range from an adjusted sale price of $1,051,000 for comparable number 4 to $1.5 million for comparable number 3. And the comparable number 3, that property being the one that was actually built around the same time of that of the subject property. Whilst my presentation, Madam Chair, is from what we see here from the my brief, it's not going to be limited to other things that I've observed so far, and I've observed that we would disagree. When we look at the presentation that we'll be getting, is that we see very quickly there is no evidence of number 132 Chataway that is in the brief of the appraiser, and I'm rather surprised. I would think that this is, I would like to think, I'm going to speculate rather, that this was done deliberately not to put it in, but that's a speculation. You might hear otherwise. It is in fact, after I've checked it out, and the reason I'm saying so, Madam Chair, is because we happen to have the same appraisal report in the office, so I was able to do that. And I didn't see it then. I also saw split levels instead of 2-story homes. So I'm seeing some flaws in the appraisal report, which we'll be dealing with afterwards. That's my presentation for now. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Did you have any questions, sir?
A few. Was the assessor able to inspect the subject property?
I beg your pardon?
Were you able to inspect the subject property?
No, sir, I didn't.
Were you able to inspect any of the comparable sales?
No, but I do rely on the multiple listing, whereby we look at the properties in details, and we look at the pictures in details. When we do all the reading, we try to find out which property is superior and what the conditions are.
Okay. Just a few questions on the comparables. Are you aware that comparable number 1 sold in 2016 for $610,000, so about 1 year before, sold for about $700,000 less?
Well, by that note, sir, the way I'd answer that question is to tell you that it becomes irrelevant. We're now looking at the property that is sold for in 2017, the properties that we renovated to bring it that much closer to the subject property.
So, but comparable number 1, if it sold for $700,000 more a year later,
It's irrelevant. I'm answering your question. It is irrelevant.
would you agree that it's likely received some renovations over that year time frame?
It was what? I beg your pardon?
Would you agree that it likely had renovations completed?
Renovation? Absolutely. That's why it was sold for $1,300,000 in 2017.
Okay. And comparable number 1 is larger than the subject.
I'm sorry?
Comparable number one is larger than the subject, the building size?
I can see 100 and something square
Okay.
feet, and I think that it's okay to make a reasonable adjustment on size adjustment.
Okay. Comparable number two I see is located on Park Avenue, as is comparable number four. Would you say Park Boulevard is one of the more prestigious streets in the Tuxedo area?
I would think that perhaps it might require a little bit of location adjustment.
Okay.
But we have to be very careful. It's not something that we want to guess. Location adjustment, as in any other adjustment, has to come from market evidence.
Okay. Again, comparable number three is larger by a few hundred square feet, that's correct?
I can see that.
Okay.
I mentioned that in my
Yeah.
presentation.
And that sale occurred in August of 16, so about 19 or 20 months before the effective date. Number three occurred,
Was sold for.
it sold 19 or 20 months before the effective date?
And your question is,
I'm
you're
saying-
asking me if I recognize that?
I'm just making sure that is correct.
Well, it's there, sir, yes.
Okay. Comparable number four, I see the effective age is not changed. I just saw this one this morning, but I did note that in the listing does note that the main floor and the basement were renovated. So I would question the effective age of that, just given the listing information that is available.
Okay, now if that is the case, and so we still be looking at, and even if effective age has changed, an effective age on the property that would change a little bit, and I didn't do it in details, would not bring it to 2016. So certainly that property on 443 Park Avenue would be absolutely inferior to that of the subject property.
Okay. So I guess just, again, my last question is, 3 of the 4 comparables are larger than the subject property.
And that is the case, you make slight adjustment for that,
Okay.
and so are the values of those properties, as well as the effective age and other considerations.
Okay, perfect, thank you, that's it.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, did you have any questions?
Yes, Madam Chairman. I just have basically one question.
Mhm.
Is it fair to assume that this property was built in 2016?
It is fair to assume that, sir.
So there was a sale of $450, was that for the land?
More than likely, that
Okay.
would more than likely be the sale of either the land or perhaps a property that was there and taken down. I
So
don't know
was-
that I have that much information here, sir.
Okay, was there a building permit taken out for the subject property?
They would have had to be a building
Okay,
permit.
you don't happen to have it or anything like that?
I wouldn't have it here, sir.
So you wouldn't know the cost to build or anything like that?
Again, when we look at this, Mr. Merritt, the cost to build does not necessarily mean a market value.
But it's an indication though.
Yeah, it is a good indication, I appreciate that, and I agree with you. I'm gonna look to see if I have any information, sometimes I don't always have that. No, I see a building permit here by notes only, that's $650,000.
I thank you. Thank you.
So, Mr. Bramsback, I just wanted to confirm you were not in the subject property
No,
No.
Madam Chair.
and you didn't drive by?
No, Madam Chair.
For your comparisons, you were looking at MLS listings?
I would be looking at MLS listing, yes.
Okay. And you were not in any of the comparable properties?
No, Madam Chair.
Did you see pictures of the comparable properties on the listings?
Whatever pictures they would have been, I would have, once I go into it, I would absolutely be looking at it. I would look and then look again and then look a third time and so on. I look to compare, yes.
Okay. And out of the 4 comparables, which one are you putting the most weight on?
Let me just, well, actually, Madam Chair, if I look at it this way, and thank you for the question, I look at 132 Chataway, which is without a doubt the best comparable. At the same time, when I be making adjustment on that comparable, I'll be making adjustment for the size of
For the
the
size,
property.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, that's all my questions. If you'd like to proceed with your presentation?
Thank you. So the evidence in front of you is an appraisal report completed by one of the appraisers for our company. I did not personally complete this appraisal, so just want to let the board know that. You see on the cover here a picture of the building, of the subject property here. If you flip over to the first page, just some fairly standard information about the property. You'll note near the bottom left-hand corner, the lot size is about 10,700 square feet. So it is a large site area, but it is fairly typical for the area. It's large, probably can't subdivide in that area, but that's neither here nor there. If you go to the next page, again, just some general information of the property regarding the split of the different room types. Again, fairly standard for the area. If you flip to the next page, we kind of get to the main section here. We've got the first 3 of 4 comparables. All 4 comparables are located within approximately 1 kilometer of the property. Have a few much more recent sales. You see comparable number 1 occurred March 26, 2018, so virtually the effective date for the property. It's quite similar in size. It's about 250 square feet smaller. This property sold for $817,500. You'll see the other comparables, number 2, 3, and 4 are also fairly recent. Comparable number 3 is the most dated property. You'll note that 2 of the comparables are split levels. However, they are quite similar in overall building size, especially number 3. It's basically identical in the floor area. So while the split level may not be a true apples to apples comparison, the fact that it offers the same square footage is in the same area is considered to be still a good indicator. And so these comparables have actual sale prices of start that again. Has an actual sale price of $817,500 up to $1.1 million, and adjusted sale prices of $815,000 to $1,034,000, and a final concluded value here of $995,000 that we're asking the board to consider. There's more pictures of the subject property and the comparables at the rear. I'll leave the board to take a look at that themselves. That's my presentation.
Thank you. Questions?
I sort of introduced that earlier, 132 Chataway. I appreciate the fact that you said that you did not prepare this report. Did you do any part of the report whatsoever?
Did I complete any part
Did
of
you
it?
help? Did you assist in any part of the report?
No, I didn't.
So you're only here to present somebody else's report?
That is correct.
And so therefore, you perhaps wouldn't be in a position, or maybe don't want to say why she would not look at 132 Chataway and at the same time look at 117 Chataway. She's in the same area and looking at properties there. I'm trying to figure out when that one was sold on 117 Chataway.
117 was September of 2017, so over a full year more recently than 132 Chataway, about 6 months prior to the effective date, that
Okay.
Chataway property.
Are you aware that the Appraisal Institute has come up with some directive that suggests to you that if you have properties that are a little bit, that are more highly similar, that you should be going out of the time limit?
You can definitely go outside of the time limit. There's also, most lenders will not take sales that are that old. So while it is definitely possible to go older sales of 19 to 20 months, this is a fairly active area, and to go that old maybe not considered appropriate.
Okay, you're a member of Appraisal Institute,
I am.
take it, so you're an appraiser, you're an ACI,
I am.
and you're aware that the Appraisal Institute would not agree with that?
The Appraisal Institute doesn't agree with using the most recent sales.
No, would not agree that you should ignore, a sale that is more highly similar.
I would argue with the term ignore. Appraisers, if you have any 2 appraisers complete the same sum, you're not going to have the exact same sales. Information is considered, and if there's more recent sales information, you can consider that. So I would take offense to the term ignored.
Okay, and can you tell me why this appraiser, have you discussed this appraisal report with the appraiser
I have.
before you came here?
I have.
You have, okay. Did you talk about why she would put a 4-level split and not the other 2-story homes, and there are many 2-story homes in the area?
Again, given the recent sale date and the overall size, you know, I think it's important to keep the building size, instead of having 3 comparable sales that are larger by, you know, by 10%. I think building size is quite important in the area.
Okay, now this is very interesting. You're talking about timing. I just noticed this. The one sale that you're talking about in comparable number 3 on your split level, I have 14th of September 2016, and guess what? I have just August 2016 and 132 Chatterley. 1 month difference.
I would say comparable number 3 is probably the least strongest comparable in this appraisal.
It's the least comparable, so you're not
It's
putting
the least strongest. It's not the strongest comparable. It's probably the
Okay,
weakest
appreciate
comparable.
that. Okay, I'm sure I'm going to ask you to take a note of what I'm saying here, my question, with that 132 charter as opposed to this here. I'm looking at the other one here, that was 17. Also number 25, Lancaster, just for the record, you know that is also another 4-level split.
Correct.
Okay, all right. Well, I think the evidence speaks for itself. I'm glad that your presentation was short and so is mine. And
Is that all your questions?
No, I think the evidence speaks for itself. I'd make a summation, if I may, afterwards. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm done.
Mr. Merritt, questions?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Buwadi, normally on the appraisal report here, it states the purpose. And is there somewhere in here?
Yeah, very first page,
Okay.
about 5 lines down, it does say assessment appeal.
Okay. And I noticed that in Ms. Wainwright's report, she hasn't, she's used all different comparables compared to the city. So is that good or is that bad?
I think it's a difference of opinion. I think it's easy to take larger comparables and say you adjusted them down for size and have, and for lack of a better term, inflated value with larger buildings versus using buildings that are a little closer in size in terms of a little different, more similar in size, and not having to adjust for the size difference, where the city has used, again, 3 of the 4 are larger. They say they've adjusted for size. I don't know what that adjustment is, but it's easy to have a time-adjusted sale price that look quite high when 3 of the 4 comparables are larger than the subject property.
So I've noted that she concluded value at $995,000, but she put a date here for April the 4th, 2018. So the V-Day is really April the 1st, so.
Correct.
Would that be applicable through the first day of the month?
I don't think there would be any time adjustment for the 3 days.
I thank you, Mr. Buwadi.
No, I have no question.
It was brought up earlier, Mr. Burwani, about this is a new build, so I'm assuming 2015, 450 was the purchase price
Right,
as stated?
right, and actually,
And-
I believe the appraisal does note on the, it is noted in here that it was improved at the time. Where the final value of $995,000 is listed, it was
Right.
listed for $504,900 and reduced to $459. The home was torn down and a new house was built.
Do you know what the demolition costs were?
I don't have it.
Do you know how much it was the new build cost? Do you have a copy of the permit?
I don't have a copy of the permit. I would note one thing, that this is a custom-built home. My client is an architect. There might be, so I'm not sure what the cost to build was. I would argue there might be some custom features that may not reflect fully in the market. Some features that, if you read the report, the master bedroom is on the main floor, not the second floor. The exterior is 85% metal siding, which I don't think is very common for the area. There's a sauna in the basement, a sitting room on the second floor. Again, features that are rather specific and custom to this property that I'm not sure would necessarily reflect in the marketplace.
Page 4 of the report on the comparables. I'm just curious, the appraiser is listing the ages of the homes, 1976, 41, 57, and they say the condition is good, but there's no effective age.
No. Effective age is a very difficult thing to really to pinpoint exactly. It's really a best guess. I'd say that these homes all in the area selling for $800,000 to $1 million. While they might be older, they've obviously been fixed up and are in overall good condition and would be considered comparable in terms of their overall effective age.
Was the appraiser in these homes?
The appraiser was likely not in these homes.
Okay.
They would have relied again on the listings and pictures.
Okay. Of which there are no pictures provided of anything in
There
these homes.
should be the exterior shots of all
Exterior, correct,
Exterior
but
of the
nothing interior.
We have not supplied interior shots of the comp.
Okay. And so you yourself are here presenting the report, but you were not in the home?
I was not at the subject property.
Okay, I have no further questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I do want to make a summation if you don't mind.
Okay,
You don't mind?
if you could be brief, please, thank you.
Because I know because of timing and what you told me earlier that you would like it to be short.
Yes.
That's why I didn't push a lot of things. Okay, now, I'm going to deal a great deal, I'm going to talk a little bit about what I got here. The represent present itself, you want it from both sides. My emphasis here is when you look at the appraisal, what are we trying to achieve? We want to get properties that are highly similar. We want to get the similar type of homes. A two-story home is not the same style of home as that of a split level. And when at all possible, if you have the two-story home, you should not, as an appraiser, be using split levels unless, of course, by some means you want to determine a value. The fact that some people can be looking at age, the size of the home only, or place an emphasis only on the size and sort of ignore such things as the age. We're looking at properties that was presented here by the other side at 1941 as compared to 2015, and we're suggesting that they are better comparables than what the one we have. Madam Chair, it's much easier to have a size adjustment on a property that is 200 or 300 square feet when so many other things are so highly similar that you don't have to make adjustment for. You don't have to make adjustment for the location. You don't have to make adjustment for the style. You don't have to make adjustment for the type of home. In this particular case, you don't even have to make adjustment for the lot size. Some of what I have here is simply adjustment for the size of the properties. And then when you look at the argument is that it's better to maybe have it the same rather than come up or down. The fact that we're looking at a $400,000 difference in the 132 Chataway is a clear indication that the subject property is either very, very fair or undervalued.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's I do want to emphasize that.
Right.
Right? It's very fair or undervalued. And that there are flaws in the appraisal report, which hopefully you will also see. And I hope that it's being confirmed, or will be
Thank you.
confirmed. Thank you, Madam Chair.
May I just say one thing?
Absolutely.
Again, if we're talking about ignoring comparables and choosing not to choose them, my comparable number one is 5 days before the effective date. It's 2 stories. It's within 200 square feet. So I would question why that comparable wasn't used if we're worried about similar sizes, similar properties. That's it. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. And 134 for Bard Boulevard?
Yes.
Excuse me, sir, I just gotta move my car.
Oh,
so my car-
definitely.
Absolutely. Go right ahead.
We don't want you to get a ticket, that's for sure.
Pardon, by
Please state your full name,
Richard Workman.
and you swear the evidence you're about to present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Do you have any evidence you'd like to share?
No, my case is very simple. I won't take more than about 5 or 10 minutes.
Okay.
Did you say we're dealing with?
134
Bard.
Bard Boulevard.
There, fair, Bard.
To speed things up, I really don't have any issue with
Oh.
the comparables.
Okay, sir, it's okay, we'll just proceed with,
We'll have to
Do you wanna-
formally do it.
yeah.
Okay, because I know,
Go ahead.
in the interest of time.
Which I appreciate, thank you. Mr. Ramsbach, if you'd like to proceed?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The subject property, 134 Bard Boulevard is what we'll be dealing with at this time. And as a subject, in South Tuxedo, it's a two-story single-family home. It was built in 1986. We have no evidence at this point that there have been any substantial renovation done to this property to warrant an effective date change. We are dealing with a 3,477 square feet home with a full basement. That's a 9,900 square feet lot size. The assessed value, $931,000. 4 comparables have been selected here to support this value. Number 1 is number 7 Barsley Place. I should point out that each of these comparables are in the same neighborhood characteristic area, 645 South Tuxedo. It's a 2-story home, this comparable number 1, built 3 years later, 1989. It's virtually the same size, so the 494 square feet is this comparable with a full basement and a rec room. It has virtually the same lot size. The adjusted time adjusted sale price on this property is $944,000, which is about the same, just a little bit more than that of the subject property. Looking at comparable number 1, so far it does support the assessment. Comparable number 2, 16 Daventry Place, 2-story single-family home, 6 years older, 6 years newer. It is about 200 square feet larger. It's a couple of hundred square feet in lot size larger, and it is $890,000 as the time adjusted sale price. When I will look at it here, we see that it's a few $1,000s. It's like $40,000 less. It's not a great deal less, but it is less than that of subject property. If I were to examine this one a little bit more closely, it's very possible that between this one here and comparable number 1 and 2, I would see a property that maybe require a little bit more upgrade than that in comparable number 1. Comparable number 3 then, number 95 Coleraine, about the same size, built in 1990. Lot size is 200 square feet larger, 988 square feet. This one here is a little bit higher in terms of value. And then comparable number 4 in Dunbar, built around the same time, just 2 years newer. This property, it is 500 square feet larger. What I see here is got a full basement to the park area, which suggests at some point in time there would be an area that probably either an addition to it, or maybe there was no basement under a certain part of this property. That's all it means. I don't know the size of the basement. 11,000 square feet, that is a little bit larger than that of the lot size for the subject property, and it's $1,046,000, which is also a little higher based on the size of the home and that. If we look at, and I don't, so far I have not used the price per square foot a great deal on the other 2 properties that we talked about so far. We're looking at $242,000 per square foot on comparable number 2, and the highest one is $282,000. Now, what we see as more consistent is the properties, 3 of them are that closer to that in terms of value, in terms of price per square foot, in terms of age and everything. And at 931, it sounds and it looks very fair, and I think that 931 is a fair value and ask that you conform it. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, did you have any questions of what the assessor just presented?
No.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Merritt?
I just have one, not to you though. The time adjustment percentage-wise, do you know offhand what it was?
And which one?
On
On all of them?
overall.
Okay, I didn't look, okay.
Like I just a calculation for comparable number 1, and it's 2%.
Okay.
So is that 2% per month or per,
No,
you know,
that would be from the time the property is sold to the April 1st, 2018. The other one, again, would be from, the second one would be from September, and then the time it is sold to April 1st, 2018. The third one would be from December to April 1st, 2018. They're all going to be to 2018, and the last one from October. So they're all going to be different, all going to have a different value, time adjustment.
do you believe in time adjustments?
I do.
Okay, I thank you.
No questions? I have no questions either. Sir, if you'd like to give us your presentation?
Yeah, my presentation is this, when I got my assessment value went up 12.8%. My property, bathrooms, kitchens are original. About 6 or 7 years ago, I was here, and I asked for an assessor to come to my property and verify that, which he did. Took pictures, and I agreed on the assessed value that he came up with. I was happy. Now I get a 12.8% increase in 1 year, and I'm happy with, give me the increase everybody else got as the average. I don't understand how you can give me a 12.8% when I've done nothing to my property. It's original bathrooms, original kitchens. I haven't knocked on the doors of these places, but I would say in the area I live in, if you've got a 35-year-old house like I do, I'm retired, I'm not going to spend $100,000 on kitchens and bathrooms. Many of these houses have had that. So why I'm here is to say, give me the average increase that my neighborhood got, but don't give me 12.8% when I've done nothing to my house. The assessor was there 5 or 6 years ago. All I've done is, I had to replace the roof because the shingles need replacement. That's it. I can't understand if my taxes could go up almost 13% from $825 to $931 in 1 year. How can that be?
Okay, that's the question.
Yes, how? I don't understand. I need some education. Say, how can that happen?
Okay, all right. Now,
Well, just, and are you finished, sir?
Yes.
Okay.
and that's
Do you have questions?
Well, no, I want to answer the
You can
question.
explain, yes.
And often, without the benefit of actually looking at the history of the property, I am absolutely, I don't know that I have an answer for it unless I look at it. But I can generalize, sir, and I'll tell you a few things that happened, and I would call Mr. Workman, right? I can tell you that some of these things do appear, and one of the things that I've seen happening is that there can be an override of a previous year, or there could be, let's say, an appeal of the year before. May I ask you this question as I try to answer yours? Did you have your property revised the last assessment, or was it under appeal the last time?
No.
It wasn't.
No, it's been fine for 5 or 6 years. I don't understand why I got this.
Okay. There are other ways where I see changes of 10 or 12. That's one of the big ways of seeing a 10 or 12% increase and that kind of thing. Is that when we can have an adjustment in a sale we can update the property because of a permit and renovation done, or a situation where we had a board of revision or municipal board decision that was changed, and therefore the characteristics of the property wasn't changed, and when it was calibrated based on the characteristics of the property. I hope I didn't get you lost.
Mr. Ramswack, I'm going to stop you right there. What was the average percentage increase in Tuxedo in this area from last year? 6%, 7%?
Give me a moment, Madam Chair, as I
Okay.
try to look. I think Tuxedo is about 6% increase average, but I need to look to see where it.
While you're looking, could I say one thing, is that I asked for that information. When I met with the assessor, I think it was November at the Burton Cummings Community Hall, I went through this, and I said, just give me the average. I couldn't get an answer what the average was. I don't believe it's 12.8%. So whatever that average is, that's what I should get.
So, sir, you met with an assessor then at
Yes.
the community?
Yes,
Okay.
and I,
And,
So, okay.
sorry, I'm just asking a question here. And
Tuxedo,
what was the
which
end
is
result of that?
7.
the end
So-
result was,
Yeah, it was 5.82.
that's what I should get. The end, that did I know, I don't wanna show my frustration here, but I
That was the
called-
average. That was the average.
That's the average. I called back and I said, what's happened to my meeting with the assessor? Never got an answer. I phoned 311. After escalation that, someone finally called me back and said, well, your taxes are now going up to $931. So I said, well, what happened? Why am I 12.8 and everybody else is 5.8? That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ramswack, did you have any further questions?
No, he didn't have a presentation, I don't have a question, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Merritt?
Yeah. Mr. Berkman, when you bought this house in 2000,
Yes.
okay, it's appreciated immensely,
Yes.
okay? So the value is associated with the mill rate, which dictates the taxes.
Correct.
Okay, so what do you think the value should be for your house?
I think my house is worth about $850, maybe $860. I don't believe.
So when you look at the comparables that are here,
Yeah.
are they, which one is close to,
I-
yours?
I, quite honestly, I don't know. I'm not disagreeing with how you've done the comparables. What it comes down to is what's inside. Because my area, there's many, like $200,000 bathroom kitchens.
Yeah.
If someone bought my house today, they would come in and say, the bathrooms, the kitchen, it's all 1985 vintage. And they would want to spend a lot of money fixing it up. I would suspect.
The only way you can sort of prove that is to get an evaluation, maybe for market value or for listing purposes.
I did that the last time, 5 or 6 years ago
Yeah.
when I was here. I spent $300, got it, had the assessor, went through all that. I don't want to do that again.
But if you look at the comparables that the city presented, I mean, they're fairly reasonable.
Yeah.
I mean, this is probably the price that you might get for your house.
No.
Well, they're around because you don't really know what's inside,
No, I don't.
okay?
Yeah.
But until you look at the multiple listing or something like that, but, hey, I mean, if, your neighbors are getting this kind of price, you should get it too, within reason, okay?
Yeah.
Maybe deduct for,
The age of the.
yeah,
Yeah.
for other improvements that
Yes.
have probably taken place, but you don't really know.
I don't really know.
No, no.
That's a fair comment.
Okay, I thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Did you bring any pictures to show us? what the
No,
inside
I
is?
didn't, because when the assessor was at my place, he took a bunch of pictures. It should be in the City of Winnipeg database. They're all there. Nothing has changed. You have all the pictures.
Okay, so you feel your property should be at? you said-
5.8%
No,
rate.
but 860, that's
Well,
the number you're,
In my head, I'm at 825, if you gave me 5.8%, so what is that, 870, something like that? That's what
what's
it's,
your previous assessment, how much?
825. I'm going to 931.
And sir, I'm just gonna suggest to you that if you do come before the board or go to the community
Yes?
meetings, that you do just take pictures and present them to the assessor. That would be helpful. Just-
I will do that.
Just
yeah,
going
yeah.
forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Would you like to leave it with us?
Yeah, bye-bye.
$12.95 Charles Wood Road.
Would you like to swear in on the Bible or to? Please state your name. And you swear the evidence in the Bible will guide us to the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you. I can take your evidence.
Mr. Ramsworth, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just before we get started, you and we had a conversation about your home at any time, by any chance?
Well, this is my 6th time here in a row, so we have in the past, but you were to my last, I did meet with somebody at that meeting, but it wasn't you, it was
It wasn't
the
me.
person I was talking
You
to.
didn't talk about the phone and
No,
anything?
so
about
I was, when
septic-
I had talked to the assessor twice, but it was
Septic
someone different.
versus, whatever, no?
Well, we've been in this position before.
I just wondered
3 or 4
because-
times ago, probably.
Thought perhaps I did, but maybe I didn't. All right, so let's proceed then with what I have here. I can only talk to what I have here. All right, 1295 Charleswood Road, one-story home, that's south of the tracks, right, on Wilkes. Built in 2011, 1,893 square feet is the size of the home. 2.5 acres,
Yeah.
or thereabouts. 2.5 acres is a lot size, no sewer, no water. So we have the assessment of $653,000. And I have 4 properties here that we selected. Each of these properties are actually in the same location, south of Wilkes, south of the tracks. Comparable number 1, 1400 Loudon Road. It's a one-story home. It was built in 2013, around the same size. It's a little bit more than 1 acre. This property does have a finished basement, and we're looking at $753,000, which is $100,000 more for a property in the same location, having the same size almost. The difference here, or differences, would be the subject property does have a rec room, but the lot size that is 1.5 acres smaller. All right, and that is $100,000 more in terms of value. So now we try to figure out whether or not $100,000 would be for the difference between the rec room and what the lot size would be for being smaller. Comparable number 2 is on Charles Road, it's on the same side of the street. Again, it's a one-story home. It is 2,011 square feet and built in 2005 with a full basement and a rec room. This property has virtually the same lot size as that of the subject, and it is $712,000. So the difference I see here is the rec room, and 100 and a few square feet larger than that of the subject property. And the other difference that would be a little bit less significant would be the age of the home at 2009 as opposed to 2005 as opposed to 2011. Comparable number 3 then, it's a 1.5 story home. Actually, if you don't mind, when this was all printed and selected and everything, I just put it in my brief and move on based on my workload. So I'm not even going to talk about it because, you know, it would be, I'd be hypocritical to talk about why would we use one style of home and not the other. So why don't we leave that one out? I'm not even going to, I don't even know anything about it, and yet I'm prepared to pass it.
Yep.
All right. Comparable number 4 then, a one-story home built in 1997, 1,744 square feet, full basement and a rec room. A lot size that is double. This one would be probably 5 or 6 acres or somewhere close. Smaller, and I wouldn't know why, but 507 square feet. Okay, 1997. So what am I looking at when I'm trying to determine value to support that of the subject property? Not just to support the subject property, but to be fair. To be fair and trying to determine, is it reasonable? So then I will start to come down now to the first 2 comparables that I see here and look at the differences. The difference is that the comparable number 1 is smaller lot, comparable number 2 is the same lot. Comparable number 1 and 2 both have rec rooms. Both of these 2 comparables are over $700,000 is in the time adjusted price. I'm ignoring comparable number 3 for reasons that it's a 1.5 story. And comparable number 4, I can't say much about comparable number 4, or quality, condition, whatever. But it does show that it's much lower. I would think that based on the comparables that I have here at $653,000, $50,000 or $60,000 lower than the next 2 comparables that I would more or less think that are highly similar to that of the subject property. And that would be my presentation, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Do you have any questions?
Sure, yeah. So have you seen any of the comparison properties? Or
I would have, the least I would do when I look at these properties was to look at the multiple listing.
Okay. So my next question,
But did I see the inside or did I drive by? Did I inspect? No, I didn't.
So comparison property number 1, it has a little yes beside detached multiple garage. That little yes is at least $150,000 shop that has that has 3 doors, and it has one is semi-trailer size, and it's a huge shop. Like it's someone who does work or something there. Like it's not. So it's not that this has a whole separate building that's on the property there.
Okay.
And so just to make note of that, has that considered at all?
I would address it to the chair, Madam Chair. He suggested, he's given an opinion of a 3-car garage, did you say, for
No,
$150,000?
It's a shop, like it's a work, like they do work there. Like they have a separate garage attached to their house, which is multiple
Oh,
cars.
okay, so you have a detached garage and you have an attached garage. I do apologize, Madam Chair, when I was looking at this, I overlooked that in my presentation, so
Okay.
naturally we will take that into consideration. But does a 3-car workshop at $150,000? Again, it's an opinion, I don't have the
That's fine,
information.
yep. Carry on.
Here's my second question, on comparable number 2, it says no for multiple garages, but it has, I drove by and saw all of these properties. They have They have a 3-car garage attached to their house, and they also have a 2-car detached garage, and then they have a shed, not a shed, like a workshop area too. So there's 2 separate buildings there, so that wasn't considered at all, was it?
I would know the details, and,
Yeah.
you know, you probably, I don't doubt you, you drove by, and I have no reason to doubt you.
Yeah, so I won't address 3 if you're gonna take that over to
Mhm.
there. And then so I guess my other questions are, do you consider the differences between having a septic field and a septic tank in the property values of the house?
I'm glad you asked that question, because that's why I did some research on this when I was doing something like that. Yes, there is a difference between a septic field and a septic tank, in terms of value and cost for whatever. I would say this much, I'm not an expert on that, and therefore I can't offer a great deal of opinion and value on it, more especially since the last time I looked at it in details was much more than a year ago.
Okay. Then my other question is, in your assessment process, do you apply a model, like there's a model and you enter in numbers and it somehow generates value for the house based on these characteristics, is that correct?
Yeah, but when it comes to that septic field thing, I don't know that
Well, just in general,
the
is that
model
the
is going
process,
to
you
be-
use a model, a model?
Yeah, the model may not detect that.
Yeah.
I doubt it. Yeah, those values can be outliers where we have to look at it site specific and make that determination.
Okay, that's all questions I have.
Thank you. Mr. Merritt?
I really have no questions, Madam Chairman, but I have to tell you that Mr. Cook has come here several times, and I've been on the panel, so I've heard the argument multi-times, and I know we made decisions the last time, and we'll wait until we hear your brief, but it seems like you're a yearly customer here.
Yeah.
Okay, and I've heard the argument. I probably sat with, it's probably 2 or 3 times, so
I'll do it again.
that's all I can say. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Ramswack, you said that there is a difference between septic field and septic tank, but you did not say what that difference is.
Well, I also said that I'm not up to date with the value because it's been a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago since I looked at it in details.
Well, just generally, which one adds more value, do you know? I'm not asking for specifics, but is one,
You know, sometimes we hear the term that we don't know everything and we don't remember everything. It's one of those times where I don't remember specifically which one it is. I'm sorry I can't answer that question.
thank you.
So, Mr. Ramswack, I just want to confirm that you were not in this property, correct?
That is correct.
Were you in any of the comparable properties
No,
that you
Madam Chair.
brought? Okay. And did you drive by this property?
Never. No.
Okay. So were you aware that Mr. Cook has appeared before the board on many occasions?
I can't definitively say that, Madam Chair. He does appear as someone that I met.
Well, I'm just saying from your brief.
I don't have all the
From,
my brief here, my one pager, Madam Chair, is not going to show how many times he appeared and what. I don't work with that much information.
all right, and you did not have the opportunity to speak to Mr. Cook prior to the hearing,
That is
correct?
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask one more question? So
Sure.
there was a different, like I did meet with somebody prior to go through the same thing, so I didn't have to appear today, but it was someone different. Is there a reason, or do they do the assessment for you, or and you take that information, or why is there a different
I do
assessor?
apologize, sir, but I don't hear clearly.
I had met with somebody at that, I forget the name of the community center, but there was an opportunity to talk, but it was a different assessor. Is there a reason why there's a different assessor now, today, than there was the person that I talked to?
Well, no, actually, when we get all these things, there's so many of us and the workload is being distributed accordingly.
Okay.
So we're not trying to put properties so, okay, you're better off with one set or one type of, you know, you've done this before, do it again, that kind of thing. No, they just come in at random and they're being distributed
Right.
accordingly.
Sorry, Mr. Cook, so you did have a meeting with somebody at
Yeah.
the community prior to this hearing? Okay. What was the outcome of that?
I presented basically this argument, but I added one extra spot. I'll go through it in one extra argument as well. And I said, I've been here 5 times before. Do we have to go through the whole process again? And I went through the argument. And it said, please take it into consideration, and went away, and then I got my assessment a few months later, and it didn't change at all from that. And I went back to the assessor's office there and asked for more information, and then he happened to be there, and I talked with him again and went through it to ask for more information, which I'll talk about in a minute. But basically, it was no change, it didn't make no effect.
Thank you. If you'd like to proceed. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll give a summary here, and I'll walk through 4 points here. There's a lot of information I won't go through in great detail, but just to give a summary, so the area that I live in is not a development. It was not built originally with a bunch of houses that were similar. They're all different areas. It's zoned as agricultural land. Anybody could build any size of house, so there's quite a variance. There's people who have 2 million plus homes. There's people that have $350 homes. There's all sorts of different things. So it's a really mixed bag of things. So it does get harder, I think, to assess the properties, and some of the characteristics that are typically determine value in houses within typical city developments that are listed here and used to assess homes are not the things that are significant for these types of properties. It's very different things. For example, I don't have any trees on my lot. A tree lot makes a huge difference when you have 2.5 acres versus somebody else. And so those are things that are typically matter in city properties, so there's sort of differences. So present 4 points here. So first is the assessed value is 42% increase over my previous assessed value, which was determined through the same process at a board. So if you look at Appendix A1 and A2, so A1 is the information that I received when I visited the assessor's office, and it shows the history of both the value and the appeal. And so each time I've gone through this board of revision, been successful in the appeal, but each time it's ignored, and there's a value that's significantly higher, 42%. We're not talking about just a small amount. So on Appendix A2, I just show a graph there that shows the history there, so you can just kind of see it very easily. That the actual assessed value after review each time, the original cost of the build, which was about $417,000, considering the land and the building. And then the value that they continually try to assess for, which is significant, 42% this time, and it's enough to 52% increase over other years. So there's some reason here why this is the case, but at the very least, it shows an ignoring of this information, and that I continually need to come back to this place. So I looked at the kind of how much property values on average rose. So based on information from the CMHC housing market and MLS average prices, and so it's increased 5.3%. In my area, I've done nothing to change the plate and change the property, so to me the 42% increase, it's either saying rejecting the previous 5 times that this has been reviewed and assessed and saying no, they were wrong, or not considering, or it just doesn't make sense to me. So that's point number 1. Point number 2 is that it doesn't consider still, again after the 6th time arguing here, there's still no assessment in the city's model for a septic tank versus a septic field, and it is significant. So in 2009, the city changed their rules that they're allowed, that you need a certain width of a property to get a septic field, which I didn't know when I built the house, unfortunately. And so I had to get a septic tank. So this means I have to empty the septic tank every 2 weeks. So it costs me $183.75 every 2 weeks. I've got in Appendix F some pictures of recent checks so you can see the dates and the amount that I paid. And whereas if you have the septic field, it filters it, the water is kind of distributed, the wastewater, and you have to empty it basically once a year. So in the difference in cost per year is about just under $4,600 between the two systems. So looking at the rate of a mortgage, a 25-year mortgage, that really, my calculation there is about a $73,000 difference to the cost value of the home, having not only the cost, but the annoyance of every 2 weeks having to call and arrange for emptying the septic tank. It's kind of like living in a big camper. So that's not taken into consideration at all. And under these comparison properties here, so all of the ones that are before 2009 certainly would have a septic field, because you would be insane not to do that. And properties that have larger width would have a septic, could still have a septic field today. So even if it's the same, you have to be over 2 acres, which I am, but just because I happen to have a skinny lot rather than a wide lot, I can't get a septic field. So these properties likely have, so for sure the Charleswood Road property, actually for sure all of them, the only one I'm not certain about is comparison number 1, but that also has a huge big shop, so it's a very different thing. So that's point number 2. Point number 3 is comparison properties. So it is a difficult area to find comparison properties, as I mentioned before, because of the uniqueness of each particular property. So I've got 3 properties here. One that I've used in each of my previous arguments. This one is just 3 houses down from me. On either side of me, I have 2 rich guys. I guess they have really big houses. It's not a comparison at all to mine, but a few houses down there is one. It was sold in 2012 for $450,000. So again, using the increase over time of 17.8%, about $530,000. And the assessed value, I know we can't use these, but just as reference, it's $546,000 for the city of Winnipeg, how they assessed this property. Other properties that were sold within the period of time that's relevant here, I have 1536 McCreary Road and 2000 McCreary Road, so those has the information about those in appendices G and H. Sorry, I know I have a lot of information here. So those have 2 comparison properties, similar size, both of them. One is newer home, but larger, different levels and things like that. But here, like, we're dealing with properties where the property and the makeup of the property makes a lot more significant difference than home values or home characteristics that are typical within the city. So anyway, that's my comparison property. So the 1327 Charleswood Road, which is just a few down from me, I think is the most relevant. And the 4th is, so if you just hopefully bear with me, it's a little bit technical, this part, but the 4th characteristic, I basically wonder, why do I keep having to come back to here? Like, it seems unfair and kind of strange. So I dug into it more than I had in previous times. I happen to be someone who has knowledge in statistical models. I have 2 master's degrees, one in engineering and one an MBA in business. And I've spent 20 years working as an engineer using math models. And so I've asked the city for a math model of how do you use this to understand how this, how you come up with these values, and they won't provide it. It's hidden secret. And so I submitted a FIPA request for freedom of information to get the model information, and that was rejected initially and went through the appeal process. However, during the rejection, they specified that it was a linear regression model. And so that actually gave me a lot of information. So I won't go through it in detail because I know it's kind of technical, but in Appendix J is kind of talking about the flaws with that. So again, just bear with me. There's 3 assumptions that you have to apply for a linear regression model, which is linearity, normality, and something called homoscedasticity. So 2 of those I can't look at without having the model information, but one of them, the norm, basically assumes that all the distribution of data is in a normal distribution. So this is like a bell curve, you've probably heard of a Gaussian distribution, and so a lot of things follow that. For example, the height of people, they follow that where you can work with averages. You can't get people that are 14 feet tall. You know, there's kind of limits within those types of things. But it's a requirement for using these types of models. And typically this is okay in city development properties because all of the houses are relatively similar. You're unlikely to have a whole bunch of $350,000 houses with a $2 million house in the middle of it, which would be the equivalent of a 14-foot tall person. And so those type of models can work for city properties. However, in the area that I live in, they are not applicable at all. And so to show that a little bit more clearly, I'll just show in the graphs. So the normal distribution is on J2. It shows a typical normal distribution, the bell curve type of thing. I took all of the sales data which is provided at the city of Winnipeg for the relevant period for my area, which is called 658 Wilkes South, and put it into distribution. And you can see that there's only 18 sample size, so it's a very small sample size. The maximum is a $2 million sale, and the minimum is a $325,000 sale. And it does not fit the normal distribution. And you can see this very clearly because of the difference between a mean, which is the average, and a median, which is half of the sales below and half above. For a normal distribution, those should be very similar. For this, it's $200,000 or $150,000 apart. And so as a comparison, I also did 363 Elmhurst. So this is also in my same area in Charleswood, just another random area. This one had 120, so much larger sample size, number one. Number two, it fits more closely to a normal distribution. So here is just showing that this type of statistical model applied to the city could actually work on these types of things because it was a development and there's nothing that's too obscure and strange in those areas. In my area, it does not apply. So you have the city basically going through this and understanding the process. They enter in these characteristics, they don't look at the properties. These are characteristics that really identify probably, I hope, the value of homes within typical development-built areas, but are not at all applicable for the agricultural, outside the city type of areas that I live in. And I can show this very clearly with, typical statistical processes. And I can show it even stronger once I get the model, which I hope to do through the FIPA process. But it's just so this is showing me that this whole model of plugging in these numbers of these comparables is broken for my area. The whole area should really be thrown out. It'd be much better to have somebody who is a real estate agent drive up and down the streets and just pick out the numbers and you get something a lot closer. And so that's showing that it's basically very flawed for the particular area. So that's one of the reasons I think why I keep having to come back. However, that model should still be taken with the judgment of the assessor, and that I cannot explain. Why it's been 6 times that I still have to come back here. So I'm gonna go very deep into this process because I don't want to come back here. I really don't. It's very clear to me that there's evidence that my house is not worth the value that you put forward, and each time there's either it's being ignorant of the previous times and not knowing that's happened, but I don't think that's the case because I met with an assessor, or being very stubborn and saying we disrespect this process, that it has no value, and each time, it gets to the point of harassment after a while. Like the 6th time I have to come to do this, it is ridiculous by all measures. So anyway, that's my argument.
Thank you. Questions, Mr. Ranswag?
No.
Okay. Mr. Merritt?
Just one, Mr. Cook, you concluded on page 4 that the range is around the 460 to 483.
Yeah.
And so would that be the figure that you're seeking?
Yeah, something within that range, and so
Okay.
all of those are calculated based on
I
the
thank
criteria.
I thank you, Mr. Cook.
Yeah.
Any questions?
No, I
Okay.
have a bunch.
Okay, good.
So you built this home in 2011?
Yes, that's right. Oh, moved in 2012.
Okay. Did you build this home yourself?
We hired a builder to do it, so we had no special ability to get cheaper or anything. We just hired a builder.
Was it a custom home or?
It was custom.
And so it was 417,000, I think you said?
Yeah.
And you bought the land for 147?
So the land was 147, the build of the house was about 280, so that's where it came from.
Okay, thank you. And there's no pictures of the inside of your home. Can you speak to the finishings?
Sure. We built it in 2012. I have 4 kids that have beaten up in that time since there, and we haven't really done anything with it. So it's not a high-end home. Like, we basically built a house that was to be beyond our extent of ability to pay for it, thinking we'd grow into it over time, which is, have space for kids or whatever. But we have not. We bought all our kitchen stuff from Kenmore. Like, it's really not high-end at all. So it's
Right. Do you have hardwood floors or?
We have like
granite
laminate
countertops?
floors, countertops or Home Depot, like whatever, just typical, whatever they are, yeah.
Okay. And just also, have you had an assessor come out to inspect your home?
No. Well, I don't need to really, because I've been successful in making this argument. So for paying someone else to make this argument for me, I'm perfectly capable of doing it. My more frustration is I want to get to the point where I don't have to come here anymore. It's clearly been
Precisely.
shown, so.
So I'm just thinking that if you actually called 311 and made an appointment and had an assessor come out. this
Yeah,
might-
I really question the motives of the assessment office. I wouldn't trust them to be inside my home. I wouldn't let them in my home because I don't know why I've been here 6 times. It doesn't make sense to me. So until I had a clear reason of why that was, I wouldn't let anyone in my home.
And I just wanted some clarification on page 1 of your appeal, you talk about, it was determined the assessed value went from, or I guess it was reduced to $460 for the 2018 tax year.
Yeah,
And you said it was made at the appeal board?
or I meant this board, like
This
the
board, the board,
the
okay,
the
that's
Board of
what I
Regents,
just
sorry,
didn't know
had
if
the
it went
wrong-
to the
wrong
community
board.
board, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll leave it with us, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for very kind.
I'm gonna take a 5-minute bathroom break.
Yes,
Okay.
we're just gonna take a quick break.
Sure, that's great.
I'm gonna call this hearing back to order. Mr. Ramswack, if you'd like to present
Good.
59
Thank you, Madam
Portside.
Chair. I'm gonna try
Sorry,
to,
swear in first.
Oh, sorry,
Just swear in.
What property are we at?
Please state your full
59
name.
Portside
Edwin
Drive.
Joseph's
Port
home?
Sky?
And you swear
Okay.
the evidence you
Okay,
have
thank
present
you.
the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay.
okay. All right, while she do that, I'm gonna try to do this in between 2 to 5 minutes.
Yep,
but
just
2
read
minutes,
it. Just read it.
as
Yep.
quickly as possible, right?
Yep,
All right. So let's get this out of the way by
One copy, make sure he's not
avoid
got
the
my
distraction.
Sorry. It's gonna take a little while.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, madam.
Is that,
Oh, that's two?
that's okay, that's for you.
Oh.
Here, just give me 3 of each and I'll pass them out, how's that? I will. All right, and then this is your copy. Okay, your copy, my copy.
Thank
Your
you.
copy,
Two more.
your copy, this is for the assessor. Oh, okay. These are yours?
And that's it, and then got 4 of everything?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, shall we proceed?
yes.
First of all, it will be absolutely possible for me to, in 5 minutes, to do all of this and make any comments and judgment. So let me proceed with what I have here. Tell my side of the story. 59 Portside. It's a one-story single family built in 2016. It's 1,657 square feet and has some kind of a park entrance at 5,770 square feet. We have it at $651,000. I do not know the last assessment what it is. Or wait a second, it looks like I do know that. Not that that matters right away. 4 comparables are selected for these properties. They're in the same neighborhood area. Each of them are one-story home. Each of them single-family home, and the age of these homes are close to one another. The size of the home, they're not so far apart. Look at that carefully. Comparable number 1 is $597,000 at time adjusted price. Comparable number 2, 115 Marion Drive, $919, which would indicate that there is some superiority in terms of a little bit larger lot, little larger size, built around the same time at $919,000. Comparable number 3. At some point in time, I would emphasize that this is the one I should put my weight on. Anyways, let me talk about it a little bit. It's one story, built around the same time. It is 143 square feet larger. If you take $85 a square foot or $100 a square foot, you get $10,000 or $15,000, I believe, difference in adjustment. Got a rec room, multiple bathroom on the same side, entrance in the park, $590,000. And the last one, Mardina Crescent, $510,000. It is around the same age, slightly smaller at 5'10". Now, what I'm looking at here is that why am I looking more on 67 Ford side? Because I think it's probably 2 houses away, couldn't be more than 2 or 3 houses away. A difference that I see is 153 square feet, and I see it's on the same side of the street, it's on this, backing on the same park possibly, on the same lot size, and have a lot of features that are similar at $690,000. I can't explain why the comparable number 4 is 510 and why the other one is 567, but I'm going to put my weight on the 67 based on the information I have here, and I say it's $651,000, and that's my presentation. I'm waiting for your question.
Thank you. Sir, did you have any questions of the assessor?
Yes. Have you personally visited the interiors of these homes that you're relying on?
No, sir, I haven't.
Have you viewed photographs of the interior of those homes?
There would be pictures of these homes, yes, that are available. That is providing they are sold in MLS. So happens that some of these homes are not sold in multiple listing, and I would have them all, but typically we have more than 90%, probably more like 95% of the properties, yes.
Would you agree that if a home has a large cathedral ceilings and movie rooms in the basement and is very spacious as compared to my property, it might be worth a lot more money?
I have not seen the property, sir, and I can't answer to that, I'm sorry.
Would you agree that the 2016 assessment that the city posts is, as far as the city's aware, in their opinion, the market value at that time, 2016?
2000, when my question again was 2016, what
Yeah,
happened?
the market value posted on this website is in fact the assessed value, but it's also close to the market value in 2016?
Well, the assessed value of a property can be a bit different from what the market value is from time to time.
To what degree?
Well, that depends on being specific. If you look at the property specific, then we start examine it more closely, and at that point in time, we can determine that.
Do you have any figures on the average increase or the range of increases of the assessment between 2016 and 2018 on Parkway or Portside Drive, I should say?
Not specifically, but we should have the average price in that region. That region is going to be. Bear with me a moment. And that would be region 10, and that is 4.21%.
Would you think a 24% increase in the assessment between last year and this year would be extraordinary?
Well, if you look at percentage, the logical answer to that would be it is higher than average, and that's the real answer. It. I can't speak to why it was lower and why it went up to that much until I do more investigation.
Obviously, if the city posted the 2016 assessment on their website, they accept the assessment of 525 in 2016?
I think I got that much information that I took. The last assessment was $525,000, but I also see the previous assessment was $579,000. So again, I know that as a figure, but I do not have the reason as to why the changes had occurred then.
But obviously, the city accepted 525 in 2016.
Again, I don't know why. I don't know if it was at the board of revision and it was reduced, and if it was done at the board of revision, we typically accept what the board of revision on the decision.
Do you have anything in your records that indicate that an assessment was done by a private appraiser and submitted to the city in 2016?
I would not have that information with me at this time, sir.
And as we heard earlier today, you would agree that there are significant possibility of different appraisals based on the interior of a home. And without viewing the interior, it's hard to really compare homes.
Would you repeat your question again, please, sir?
You would agree that the interior of a home, such as cathedral ceilings, the fixtures, the degree of the layout, etc., affects the market value of property?
Well, to be specific with your question, sir, I'm also an appraiser, and I'm going to tell you right now, if I walk in a home that has a cathedral ceiling as opposed to one that doesn't, I would not make an adjustment for it.
Okay. Would you expect the property values in the same area of the city to increase in similar fashion between 2016 and 2018, if there were no improvements made to the homes?
Well, every 2 years, as you know, we have to reassess these properties by legislation. And when we do that, your property being in Region 10, in the city of Winnipeg, we have 10 different models. Each of these models, they capture all the characteristics of the property, they capture all the sales of these properties, and they determine based on the sales, and they match it to the home, your home for that matter, that will be highly similar with the other properties that have been sold, and determine the best estimated value at that point. It's calibrated based on the characteristics of your home.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Merritt?
I don't think I have any questions, no. No, thank you.
No questions. Mr. Ramswack, you did not inspect the
No, Madam
home
Chair.
or any of the comparables?
That's correct.
Or drive by?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you. Sir, presentation, please.
As the board's aware, I am one of the registered owners of 59 Portside Drive, and I live there with my wife, Marilyn. In 2016, we received a notice of assessment from the city asking that our assessment go up to somewhere in the range of $570,000. I can't swear to that because I can't find the records, but I know it was somewhere up in that range. We felt that at that time our assessment was overvalued, and as a result we hired a private certified appraiser, professional appraiser named Valerie Johnson. Actually, we hired her to get a mortgage at the time for something else. So that is Exhibit 1 that I filed, and she valued our property as per her appraisals and comparisons, etc., at $525. That was submitted to the city of Winnipeg, and they accepted that without going through this process that we're going through today, and they put our assessment at $525, which we felt was fairly accurate at that time, based upon what we knew as well as what the assessor told us, the appraiser. When I got the notice of assessment for 2018 in June of 651, I thought maybe it was a typographical error and that maybe it should have been 551, because that amount is 24% higher than the 2016 assessment. It went up $126,000 in 1 year. And it's nice to follow Mr. Workman because he put my argument before this panel more than I can, I think. His was 14%, mine's 24%. When I phoned the city to see if they made an error, I was assured that that was not the case. So I hired Ms. Johnson again to do another appraisal, evaluation, and that's Exhibit 2 that I filed with this panel. And based on her appraisals and comparables, she felt our property was worth $550. Now, one of the comparables is next door to us, faces the park the same as we do. It's a 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom home, I believe. Very similar square footage. I think it's 30-some square feet less than our home. It has a double garage, a finished basement, a deck, and their assessment from what I understand, is, according to the records in Exhibit 4, is $570,000, I believe. It was sold for $550,000 in May of 2018, although it was listed for more than that in March of 2018. I would ask this panel to accept the appraisal report of Ms. Johnson, because firstly, her comparables on sales are far more recent than the ones the city are relying on as 2016. These are all 2017 and 2018 appraisal. I find it difficult to accept that valuations can go up on average, as indicated here, at 4.21% in Region 10, and my home would go to 24%, which is in Region 10. I calculated all the increases between 2016 and 2018 from the city appraisals that are posted online, some of which I couldn't get the 2016 assessments, so I wasn't able to do those particular appraisals. But of the 12 homes that I was able to calculate on Exhibit 3, the average increase in the assessment value is 3.63%, and they range from a low of 2.77% to a high of 5.34% until you get to 59 Portside Drive, which I've put in bold there. My home is 24%. It's my position that my home might be worth slightly more than the neighbors that's right next door, that was sold in May of 2018, but was listed prior to that in the time frame that we're talking about, which sold for $550,000. I personally know about 67 Portside Drive. I've been in that house, and I can assure this panel it's a way nicer home than my home, although I got a nice home, but it's a way nicer home and much more spacious and upscale. And it is larger by 143 square feet. And I don't think it's fair to compare my home with that home if a person was to actually go and view those houses. So in summary, I submit that the appraiser's report of Ms. Johnson, who's a certified independent appraiser, should be accepted as $550,000. I'm willing to concede it might be $555,000 or $560,000, but I can't see it being any higher than that. That's my submission, subject to any questions you may have.
Thank you.
In the
Questions?
interest of time, Madam Chair, I don't know that I want to proceed much longer. I want to give this gentleman a benefit of checking his meter because it's 525, unless you want to close it. I don't know that I can answer to these things. I may find, and I might ask the question why we look at certain compounds and not all, but I don't know if I want to go there. I can't speak for the previous assessor or appraiser, so I don't know that I should be asking any question about this. You have the information, and I didn't do an appraisal report on it, and I didn't do the details on it here.
Okay.
I don't know that I want to.
Okay.
I mean, I could, but I don't want.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mayor, did you have any
Just one
questions?
question, and that is, number 63 was sold, and you said it's superior to yours?
Which home, sorry?
Number 63?
63.
Number
is,
63, it's in the appraisal report. Okay.
Right next door, yeah.
Yeah, next door. So
I'd say it's
why
very
is
similar.
it superior to yours?
I think interior-wise, I've been in it a number
Yes.
of times. We used to be friends with the previous owner.
Okay.
It sold for $550,000. I think they're very similar.
Okay.
We have a bigger deck.
Yeah.
We have a sunroom,
Okay.
which I don't believe is covered by assessments.
So here's the problem that I have, that number 67, which is down the way,
Next
okay,
door.
sold in 2016 and sold for $671,000. So why the discrepancy between, on the street? I mean, it's $100,000 roughly, maybe more, 120. So,
Well, if you
has
get somebody
one
that
got
wants that
a
house, they
safe
might-
in it or something like that with gold in it, or?
Well, I know it's very spacious, I've been in it, it's,
Okay. But they're similar sizes, that's
It's,
what I'm saying.
it's 1,800 versus
Yeah.
1,657. but,
Okay.
um,
But you're
It's a wide
you're
open
close to
house.
1,700,
Yeah.
okay? So,
Yeah.
100 square feet is not gonna make a hell of a lot of difference.
I know it was on the market quite a long time.
Yes, I see that.
I went through the open house a couple times. I actually,
Mhm.
I'm a colleague of the person that lives in it now.
Okay.
And,
So if you listed your house, and these other ones are, comparable, what would you list your house for? Would you list
well,
it at
most people start a
550?
little bit high because they know they're gonna get an offer this
Yeah.
house. But
Yeah,
I think I might list it for 570, 575 perhaps.
Okay.
But I would accept probably 550
okay.
or 555.
Okay. Okay, I thank you very kindly. Thank you.
If you wanna buy it, it's available.
No questions?
No questions.
I just have one quick question. So, you've had 2 appraisal reports done now. Did you do the community meet and greet with the city prior to coming here?
I phoned the city and advised them they had the second appraisal. And the lady that I spoke to there was not interested in even hearing what I had to say. She said I could appear in front of this panel, or this board. I was going to submit that second appraisal to them, but she just was not interested in receiving it. That was the word I got, so here I am.
And this is the second time you've appeared before the board?
No,
No.
no. The first time I just submitted the appraisal,
Appraisal,
and
okay.
they accepted it.
All right.
And that's what went on Exhibit 4, that's what on the posting.
Right, okay.
I only submitted Exhibit 1 to show that there's been no changes in the house since 2016 when the pictures were taken. Like, the pictures are identical. We haven't made any improvements to the house to rise the price up.
Okay. Thank you very much. Leave it
Okay,
with
thank you.
us. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Ramswack, I just need you to read out 161 Woodydale, please.
Okay. Okay. 1 minute, 2 minutes, or 3 minutes?
You just have to read it out.
Okay.
You
All right,
have,
161
recommendation.
Woodydale Avenue in St. Vital, it's a one-story single family built in 1973, a little under 1,000 square feet with a full basement and some development in the basement. We're looking at marginally over 5,000 square feet of lot size, assessment at $310,000. The 4 comparables chosen, they are in around the same area, 2 in the immediate vicinity, and 2 just maybe next door, sort of thing, in a stone throw away perhaps. Each of the comparables are 1-story single family. All the comparables are built around the same time. The size of the homes are very close. Each of them have full basement. All of these comparables have some basement finish. All almost all of them got multiple bathrooms. Well, I wouldn't say almost, I say number 2 and 3 only have 1 bathroom each. Each comparable have central air conditioning, and lot size is virtually the same. They range from a value adjusted sale price of $301,000 to $320,000. The $301,000 is comparable number 3, $320,000 is comparable number 4. Now, why did I choose to offer $298,000? I looked at it and I saw that comparable, the subject property 200 was on the same side in terms of size as comparable number 4. However, I looked at the multiple listing and I saw what deemed to be very good condition and perhaps a little bit superior to that of the subject property. And therefore I thought $298,000 is a fair value. I offered that to him and he accepted it after some consideration.
Okay, thank you. Yes. Do you have a copy of the email?
A copy of
The email.
his email?
Oh,
Or the
thank you.
email?
I have it, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
As part of the copy, you don't need the other part, do you? I wanted to have it anyway. Because
No,
the
I
other-
gave a copy to the secretary,
Okay,
thank
that
you.
is enough. The other part is just a little bit of for the conversation that is irrelevant. It's what's relevant is how for the agreement.
Can you just read out, please, 1584 Wellington Crescent?
Okay, all right. For 15 Wellington Crescent, it's a vacant piece of land. It's a residential. We have which is a parcel, the use coded residential, vacant residential 1. In other words, you can only build a single family home on that. We have here the subject property and we have the legal description of all the properties as well as the street address of these properties, as you can see. We have the parcel code, which is all the vacant residence 1, and we are in Tuxedo area. We have the lot size here of the subject as 14,502 square feet, and we also have the size of each of the comparables. As you can see, number 1, that is comparable 1, 9,700 square feet. Comparable number 2, 10,000 square feet. Comparable number 3, 7,700 square feet. And comparable number 4, a little bit more than 11,000 square feet. But if you look at the adjusted sale price for this, do we have adjusted sale price for these properties? Yes. We look at them at the low of $362,000. That is the adjusted sale price, at a high of $553,000. Now when we start looking then at the size of the lots, considering they are in fact vacant, $349,000, what the assessed value to this property, are the conversation with the property owner, with Dr. Jason Crosby, and he agreed that he's not going to show up and he thinks that it's fair. He realized that after I had sent him a set of these comparables. So he told me he's not going to show up. Too easy to show up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Good to go?
We are good. The hearing is closed. Thank you.
Thank you for your patience.